I'm Carl Piester. For more than 3 decades, I've worked with leaders and teams where the quality of a conversation can shape the future of a relationship, a department, or sometimes an entire organization. And one of the most common situations that I hear goes something like this. I barely started giving feedback and he became immediately defensive. The moment the conversation begins, the body language changes, arms cross, voices tighten, the explanations start coming fast, and suddenly the conversation you hoped would help someone improve turns into a debate or an argument. So the question becomes, why does that happen? In most cases, the defensiveness begins before the feedback even finishes. Because the person isn't hearing feedback as information, they're hearing it as a threat. Let me say that again. The person isn't hearing feedback as information, they're hearing it as a threat. Threat to reputation, threat to competence, threat to belonging in the group. When that happens, the brain moves very quickly into protection mode. And once someone is in protection mode, they're no longer listening to learn. They're listening to survive the conversation. They're in battle mode. That's why logic alone rarely fixes a situation. One mistake leaders make is pushing harder when defensiveness shows up. That's another repeat phrase. Pushing harder when defensiveness shows up does not work. They repeat the feedback. They add more examples. They try to prove the point. Unfortunately, that usually just deepens the problem because now the other person feels even more cornered. The conversation turns into a courtroom instead of a learning moment. When defensiveness appears, the goals change. Instead of pushing feedback harder, the goal becomes restoring safety in the conversation. When you have a defensive reaction to what you're saying, stop pushing. Instead, the goal becomes restoring safety in the conversation. You might pause and say something like this: I'm not bringing this up to criticize you. I'm bringing it up because your work matters here and I want to look at something together. That shift matters. It signals that the conversation is truly about improvement, not judgment. And once people feel less threatened, they're far more capable of hearing what you're actually trying to say. There's also something leaders should reflect on. If someone becomes defensive every time feedback begins, it may also be a signal about the environment. People are much less defensive in cultures where feedback is normal, learning is expected, and mistakes are part of growth. But in environments where feedback mostly arrives during criticism, people learn to brace themselves. So part of solving defensiveness is changing the culture around the feedback and not just the individual conversation. So as someone becomes defensive the moment feedback begins, remember a few things. Defensiveness usually means the person feels threatened, not that they refuse to improve. Pushing harder with logic often makes the reaction worse. In fact, let me just say it differently. Pushing harder with logic always makes the reaction worse because their logic is not your logic. And you might think you're 100,000% right, and it just digs the grave faster and deeper. The real work is helping the conversation move into a place where learning is possible. The real work is helping the conversation move into a place where learning is possible. When people feel safe enough to listen, feedback becomes useful again. If you're leading people, conversations like this will happen. They're part of leadership. But when handled well, they don't just correct behavior. They build stronger teams and stronger trust. If you're interested in improving how you can handle difficult conversations and conflict, subscribe to our channel and follow our series on conflict resolution, because the quality of leadership often comes down to the quality of one conversation. Those are conversations that are prizes for you because you've not only communicated a message, you've also communicated their importance. People remember them. Remember, safety is not the absence of threat, it's the presence of connection. We're not talking about warm fuzzy here. We're talking about effective ways that bring out the best in people. And we're delighted to take that journey with you. Before we finish today, let me leave you with one thought. Leadership often shows up most clearly during difficult conversations. If that's something you face in your role, we've created a free guide called Influence Under Pressure, the Leader's Guide to Difficult Conversations. It walks through a practical approach to handling those high-stakes moments well. You can download the guide using the link in the description below.